They laughed at him. They mocked his ridiculous umbrella cane. But 3 seconds later, it turned into the deadliest surprise of the battlefield. The mockery, the mission, and the man with the umbrella cane. June 14th, 1944. Normandy, France. 9 days after D-Day. A cold mist hangs low over the hedgerows, clinging to the gear of every man slogging through the saturated earth. The distant thud of artillery rolls across the bocage like slow, angry thunder. And somewhere between the shattered remains of Sainte-Croix-Grange and the German defensive line ahead, one British soldier stands out. Not for his uniform, not for his rifle, but for the umbrella cane strapped awkwardly to the side of his pack. Sergeant Arthur Monty Hales, 6th Airborne Division, squints through the morning haze, pushing his wire-rimmed spectacles up the bridge of his nose. Rainwater trickles from the brim of his helmet. Behind him, a line of paratroopers trudges forward. Exhausted, hungry, and increasingly amused by the sight of the long, thin black umbrella poking over his shoulder. "Still got your bloody brolly, Monty?" Private Lewis calls out, snickering. "Expecting rain or Germans?" Another voice adds. "Maybe he'll wave it at them and they'll surrender." Laughter ripples down the column, even as shells boom far too close for comfort. But Monty says nothing. He never does. He just keeps walking, right boot sinking deeper than the left, hands tight around the sling of his Sten gun. To most of them, he's the odd one out, the quiet, bookish engineer who prefers maps to jokes, calculations to conversation. They have no idea what the umbrella really is. Ahead, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Yardley raises a hand, signaling a halt. The men stop instantly, crouching near the edge of a hedgerow wall cracked by shrapnel. Yardley leans over the map case slung across his chest. "All right, listen in," he whispers. Recon confirms a German armored scout patrol up the road. Light armor, possibly Panzer IIIs or IVs. They're probing for a weakness in our flank. We'll take a fire position near the crossroads and hold until command sends word. A murmur passes through the unit. They know what that means. Tanks in the bocage. Tanks they don't have the heavy gear to counter. Monty adjusts his umbrella cane, making sure it stays covered. Yardley's eyes catch the movement. "You still carrying that thing?" he mutters quietly. "Yes, sir," Monty replies. Yardley sighs but doesn't press. He's seen the classified folder. He knows the truth. Monty isn't just carrying a strange umbrella. He's carrying a prototype British anti-armor device. Something the War Office has no official name for, and absolutely no intention of explaining to anyone without the clearance. A weapon disguised as an umbrella. Designed for one purpose. Used only once in field tests. With terrifying results. But the men around him don't know this. They only know Monty is peculiar, eccentric, always tinkering with bits of metal and wiring. If they understood what he really carried, the jokes would stop instantly. A distant rumble vibrates the ground. Metal tracks grinding over gravel. Then another. Then another. The men freeze. "Armor," Yardley whispers. 200 meters. Moving fast. The hedgerows tremble as a German Panzer IV pushes into view, its long-barreled 75mm gun sweeping the road like a hungry predator. Camouflage netting drapes over its turret, branches packed into its side skirts. A second vehicle, a half-track, crawls behind it, filled with infantry gripping rifles. The British squad goes still, rifles ready but hopelessly outclassed. "We can't take that head on," Corporal Winton mutters. Yardley breathes through his teeth. "We hold. We don't run." But the truth settles like cold iron in every stomach. If that tank spots them, they'll be shredded in seconds. Monty looks down at his umbrella cane. His fingers tremble, not from fear, but from calculation. Distance, angle, timing. He steps forward. "Sir," Monty whispers, "let me advance ahead." Yardley stares. "You're not serious." "I am. You'll be killed before you get within 20 meters of that thing." Monty raises his chin. Behind the glasses, his eyes carry a calm determination none of them have ever seen before. "I only need to be within 15. The men exchange bewildered glances. "Monty," Lewis says quietly, "you don't even have a proper launcher." Monty grips the umbrella. "Yes," he says, "I do." A moment of silence hangs heavy in the air. Yardley studies him, searching for hesitation, doubt, anything. But Monty stands firm. "All right," Yardley finally whispers. "Go, and God help you." Monty slips the umbrella cane free, holding it like a walking stick as he moves through a narrow break in the hedge. The Panzer's engine growls deeper, its treads clacking against the stones as it approaches the crossroads. Rain starts to fall again, soft, cold, and steady. Monty walks alone toward the road, the black umbrella in his hand. The tank hasn't seen him. Not yet. He stops, plants the umbrella tip into the mud, and begins the slow, deliberate motion of opening it. Behind him, the men watch in stunned silence. "What the hell is he doing?" someone whispers. None of them know, but they're about to find out. The tank, the trigger, and the 3-second legend. Monty's fingers tighten around the umbrella's curved handle as the fabric snaps open with a soft, unmistakable thwump. A simple black canopy, the most harmless, British thing imaginable. It sways slightly in the drizzle, concealing what no one but Monty fully understands. A shaped charge warhead built into the inner shaft, pressure triggered and perfectly disguised. 10 meters ahead, the Panzer IV grinds to a halt, its turret rotating with slow mechanical menace. The commander, wearing a dark field cap, pops his head out of the hatch, scanning the road with binoculars. To him, the damp, bespectacled British sergeant holding an umbrella must look like a lost civilian, or a fool about to die. Monty hears the metallic click of the turret adjusting toward him. He whispers to himself, 5 seconds. He inhales the cold air deeply, steadying his mind. He thinks of the engineers back in England who designed it, a device for sabotage teams, for last resort ambush missions where concealment meant survival. He remembers their warnings. You'll get one shot, only one. And when it arms, you'll have less than 3 seconds before detonation. Monty shifts his stance, placing one boot slightly behind the other for stability. The rain beads on his glasses. He doesn't wipe them. 3 seconds, he says quietly. The Panzer's gun centers on him. A German voice shouts from the commander's hatch, "Halt! Hände hoch!" Monty doesn't raise his hands. Instead, he twists the umbrella's handle sharply clockwise, a movement subtle enough to go unnoticed. Inside the shaft, a hidden firing pin locks into place. The weapon is now armed. The next 3 seconds will decide everything. He jolts the umbrella forward, pushing the tip deeper into the mud to channel the blast upward. The Panzer commander opens his mouth to shout again, but Monty's already moving. He slams the handle down. A tiny metallic ping echoes. A bright, white-hot flash erupts from the umbrella's core as the shaped charge ignites, sending a concentrated jet of molten metal straight upward into the belly of the Panzer. The explosion is not massive, not like a grenade, not like artillery. It's tightly focused, engineered to pierce armor with surgical brutality. 3 seconds, a flash, a roar, a shock wave strong enough to throw Monty onto his back. The ground shakes. The hedgerows light up with a brief blue-white glare. A plume of smoke erupts from the underside of the tank. Then, silence. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Even the German infantry in the half-track freeze, stunned by the inexplicable blast. Inside the Panzer, fuel ignites with a violent whoosh. Flames burst from the vents, crawling up the turret. The commander, engulfed, disappears from view as he collapses inside. Monty blinks through the smoke, coughing, ears ringing. He pushes himself upright, mud caked on his face, umbrella still clutched in his shaking hand. Its canopy shredded, its secret exposed. Behind him, the British squad stares in disbelief. Private Lewis, voice cracking, whispers, "Bloody hell! Monty just killed a tank." Lieutenant Colonel Yardley can't look away. His expression shifts from shock to awe to something approaching fear. "Get ready," he shouts. "The infantry will regroup." But they don't. The German half-track crew, panicked by the sudden destruction of their armored spearhead, jumps from the vehicle and flees into the hedgerows, abandoning their positions entirely. The explosion wasn't just a kill, it shattered the patrol's morale. Monty heads back toward his squad, limping slightly. His ears buzz and every breath feels like gravel. But he's alive, remarkably, impossibly alive. Lewis runs to him first. Mate, you've got to tell us what that thing was. Monty pushes his glasses up, leaving a streak of soot across his cheek. A tool, he murmurs, for emergencies. That wasn't a tool, Lewis says. That was sorcery. Yardley approaches, boots squelching in the mud. Sergeant Hales, he says, voice low, remind me never to question your eccentricities again. Monty manages the faintest hint of a smile. Yes, sir. But the moment of levity fades quickly. They all know what this means. The Germans will soon realize one of their tanks was obliterated by a single man, and they'll respond. The squad pulls back into a defensive posture, expecting the worst. Yet the worst never comes. Word spreads, through the hedgerows, across the patrol routes, into the German field reports. A tank destroyed by, what? A mine? A hidden explosive? A British commando? Confusion undermines their advance. The probing attack dissolves. The flank remains intact. Monty's quiet, improbable strike preserves the position long enough for reinforcements to arrive and prevents a breakthrough that could have threatened the entire sector. That night, as the men gather around dim lanterns and ration tins, they keep glancing at Monty, not mocking, not laughing, just humbled. Lewis, chewing on a hard biscuit, finally says, "You know, I think that umbrella of yours deserves a medal." Monty shakes his head. "It was just engineering," he insists. Yardley looks at him evenly. "Engineering doesn't usually blow up a Panzer." Monty doesn't argue. He simply folds what remains of the umbrella, scorched, twisted, and useless, and places it gently beside his pack like a fallen comrade. He never carries another one. He never needs to. But for the rest of the war, and long after, the men of the 6th Airborne Division tell the same story over and over. The day the quiet engineer with the umbrella killed a German tank in 3 seconds, using nothing more than the strangest weapon they'd ever seen.